No, but in the house, that's where a person lives. And the house is designed, is basically able to accommodate, well, whoever they accommodate, but based on the size of the house, how big it is, how long it is, how wide it is, how high it is. So too, the Oisius letters, they contain a certain content in it. Every word have to put together the words Aleph Beis, there's a meaning to it. The meaning is like the neshama of the word, and that's the content. And the letters Aleph Beis, that's like the house that contains the content. Then he spoke about if you rearrange even the same letters, the meaning changes. It's a totally different meaning. So this is all about giving a little more insight into what the letters, the oisius, are all about. And he's going to continue with that in Gimel. That's the third chapter in Gimel. The Inyan is. The last thing he spoke about was the three letters. He gave an example of the three letters of Hey, Rej, and Tzadik. That there are 6 ways, 6 different combinations of those letters. Either you can write the Tzadik first, or the Rej first, or the Hey first. So depending on how you rearrange those letters, the meaning will change. And then he shows that it can change from one end of the spectrum to the other. Tzadik Reish Hey spells tzara, which means trouble. And then if you rearrange the letters, it becomes tzohar, means light, and not just light, but a bright light. The kind of bright light that shines in the middle of the day when the sun is right over our heads. So, continuing that, with all letters, dependent on how we combine them, based on the way the letters are arranged, even though the letters might be the same, but the arrangement is different. I mean, today with technology, we have a lot of good Mishalom for Chassidus, but this would be like saying, of course, it's not the same. I'm just the idea that if you have numbers and there are 2 people that have the same telephone number, one lives in China and one lives in the United States. The difference is the arrangement of the numbers. This guy's number is 718-36245, and this one is 62345-718. So how is it possible that if you dial these numbers, you end up in China? Yeah, dial those numbers, you end up in the United States. Well, it depends what order the numbers are in. So the numbers could be the same. They're the same 9 numbers, but they're rearranged differently. You end up in a different place. With Oisius, the same letters, Aleph, Beis, could be rearranged to Beis Aleph, and there's a different meaning. Tzadik Hey Reish could be arranged to Hey Tzadik Reish, or Reish Tzadik Hey, and it's a different meaning. But now he says like this, the difference will be in the content, and he uses the term the light that's in the letters, and the light that encompasses the letters. What does that mean? When you're talking about a word, what does it mean? There's something that's in the word and something that's around the word. So he explains that. Kamei b'tevis of. When you say the word of, which means a father. So first of all, it has its meaning. It means a father. And then there's also the content of what it implies. Or take the other word, boy, Beis Aleph. That means to come. So the word itself means to come, but then there's misuvim, what's around it, meaning to say, me'ayimba, where's it coming from? Or la'anba, where's it going to? That means every word has the literal meaning of that word, and then it implies something else. So let's say the word is of, that means there's a person, and he married another person, and they together had a child, and everything that's involved. But when you say of, it implies all those things. So the word of literally means a father. But the implication of all the other things is also part of it, but that's outside of the word. And and that's what he's saying. There's a light that's in and there's light that's, and all that depends on how the letters are arranged. Why is he saying all this? He's leading up to something. That's why letters are called kalim. You don't see this. Eris and kalim is one of the most common terms used everywhere in Chassidus. Lights and vessels. Of course, when we say the word vessel, we think of a pot, of a cup, a bowl. That's begashmis is a vessel. But here we're talking about things that are spiritual, and we're using the term vessel, which means when one thing contains in it another, that's the vessel. That's the kelim. So, Keshem shahakelim, heimekablim b'tzeicham es anosim bohem, just like a vessel in begashmius receives and contains in it whatever you put in. So it's a vessel. This is a cup, and what does you put in? You put in water. Then there's certain vessels that you put food into the vessel. And there's certain vessels that you put water into the vessel. So, for example, if this were a basket, you can put apples in it, but you can't put water in it. You can put it in, but it's going to be gone in a second. So every vessel is designed to be able to contain whatever you need to put in that vessel. It's the same as with letters. The letters are also vessels, and what do? They receive the light of logic that's in those vessels, which means when a person speaks and I want to communicate to another person a certain idea, a question, an answer, an explanation, an insight, I can't do it without words. I can't just go, You don't know what I wanted to say. So you have to say words. So what are the words? They contain in it the logic, and through the words I can communicate this logic to another person. That's how the word is going to be, depending on how I arrange the letters. The dugmas tzir habayis, just like a house, that the length, orkay, rokba, in the width, the goba, in the height, it's all depends on the amount of stones and also the order, the way you organize the stones. That will determine what kind of a house you're going to have and what it could, who and what it could accommodate. So now he's going to explain how the concept of vessels applies to the whole idea of the godly spark that we keep talking about. So those that came, we're on, there's no page number here, but on top of the page it says 195. That's the third chapter of the Maimer. And we're starting with the words, which is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 lines from the bottom. First one on the line is Mispar, and we're starting with the word Vihine. Is Havos, Elemes, Bria, Yitzira, Asiya. The creation of the three worlds, the world of Bria, the world of Yitzira, and the world of Asiya, Umeshviris HaKelim Yutayu. This came about through the breaking of the vessels of Tayu. So the term breaking of the vessels comes from the Zohar. It's found in the writings of the Arizal. And it's saying that there was a world called the world of Tohu, and the vessels broke, and they evolved and evolved until they became what exists in the world of Bria, and from there it evolved to become what became in the world of Yetzirah. From there it continued to evolve, and it became lower, the world of Asiya, and then eventually it evolved into becoming everything in this Gashmistic world. Sheina Oisi is the Tayush and the Spargu. So when it says that the vessels broke, what does it mean? That in the world of Tahu, there were also words with which Hashem created that world. And when those letters, what happens when a vessel breaks? It means the parts are no longer connected. You drop a glass dish. So this dish, all the pieces were one. Break means that it falls apart. They separate from each other. So too, very often in Chassidus, they bring the example, specifically the word Baruch. Baruch means bracha. How do you spell Baruch? Beis, Reish, Vav, Chaf, final Chaf. What if you take the four letters, and you separate them from each other? You take the Beis, put it here, and the Reish, and you put it there. They're not one next to each other. It's gone. The meaning is gone. All you see is a Beis. You don't have the meaning. All you see is a Reish, or a Vav, or a Chaf. Only when they're next to each other, connected to each other, are they able to contain in it that content, which means a blessing. So in the world of Torah, the light of that world was contained in the vessel, and the vessel, which are the letters which contains it, came apart from each other. That's what we use the metaphor of breaking. And once it came apart from each other, it no longer was able to contain in it that light. Mehenu arapach nitzutzim. That's where the 288 sparks come from. Shetzichem nizbarer badalat golius. And that's really according to Kabbalah, that's the main purpose of everything that's happening in Golus, that by being in Golus and the four Golusin, we're elevating those sparks. Elevating means that we're reconnecting them to their original source. So just like a vessel would break, it can no longer contain liquid in it. What if I take the pieces together and I have a way of putting it back together, that it's now back as one vessel? Now we can put the liquid back in again. So the world of Torah, the letters fell apart. Once the letters fell apart, then the light was no longer there, it was gone. But when we do mitzvahs and we make brachas, we just make a bracha shahakala on this water, what it does is the spark of godliness in this water gets reconnected to its source. And when all the sparks get connected, the vessel is all put together again, and the light of the world of Torah is able to shine back into those vessels. This is just words. We have to explain it. So again, the term oisius, which is letters, kalim, which is vessels, interchange constantly in the Maimer, in all Maimarim. Because letters are kalim, and kalim are letters. Why did the vessel break? Anyone familiar with the reason why? Yeah.
Because there was no everything was just crazy. There was no separation between Chesed and Gevurah, and there was no borders isn't the right word, but it was just chaos.
Chaos. So the chaos also comes as a result. I mean, first of all, there are a few reasons that are given, but they're all interconnected. But the simple reason that's given is that we say the vessel is supposed to contain a light, right? That light that was shining in that world was so powerful, was so intense, that it was so overwhelming that it fell apart. Just like we have the story in Chumash with the two sons of Aaron, that they were overcome with such love for Hashem that their neshama left their body. Which means if the body isn't experiencing an emotion which is overwhelming and it's impossible for the body to contain it, then God forbid it falls apart. In fact, again, somehow everything we're learning is connected to today's parsha. In today's parsha, the story of Vayera with the Akedah. The next parsha starts off that Sarah passed away. So it says in the Medrash, why did she pass away? Because the Satan came and told her, you should know your husband just took your son and he's going to slaughter him. And I guess he was hoping that she would maybe stop him. But when she heard the news, she died. She passed out. Was it because she was so overcome with grief, or she was overcome with joy that their husband and her son are doing this great thing that Hashem asked them to do? Which is probably, I think that's the explanation. But whatever it is, it's clear she was overcome with such an emotion that's so strong, so intense, that the body can't take it, that it fell apart. Also, it says in Chumash that Moshe Rabbeinu, this you might remember from before, one of the last parshas, is that Moshe Rabbeinu passed away, Aaron passed away. It says that they passed away b'neshika. Hashem kissed them and they passed away. What's the metaphor? It means that Hashem allowed himself to be revealed to them on a level that they never, even Moshe, never experienced before, and that it was so overwhelming that therefore, and that's how he passed away. So in the world of Tohu, the light was actually much higher, much greater, much more intense than the world of Atzilus. And because of that, the vessels weren't able to contain it. But not Chas v'Shalom that Hashem tried to make it work and it didn't work. That was the initial plan, to create a world that has vessels, and the vessels will contain it in the light, and the light will be overwhelming, and the vessels will fall apart, and then we, through the work that we will do, will reconstruct that vessel. And when we reconstructed that light, which initially couldn't be contained, now it'll be able to be contained. Yep.
When Mashiach comes, do we go back to that world?
No, that world comes down to us.
Oh.
We stay here. We're not going anywhere. Yeah.
So you're teaching that when we reconstruct it, it'll be brighter, it'll be more than what it was in the show?
Well, first of all, what will be more is the fact that we'll be able to contain that light. So something changed in the world, that now we can contain the light. Because before, after all the work that was done through Torah, through mitzvahs, through elevating those sparks, it's not that we're just putting back the same thing that was. Now it's at a much higher level, and it contained that light. But the truth is, yes, it'll definitely be a much higher light than what was even in the original world of Torah. In other words, all these amazing things that we say are going to happen when Mashiach comes, it's all the result of the fact that that light will go back to the world of Torah, and then the whole chain reaction, Atzilus, Bria, down to here, everything will change. So it says that when it broke into 288 pieces. Usually if a dish breaks, you don't really count how many pieces it broke into. But here they counted. It broke into 288 sparks. And that has to be elevated. Asher raised Beis Netzutzes, 202 of those sparks, Nizbarnu Begolus Mitzrayim. They were elevated when we were in Mitzrayim. In other words, when the Jews were in Mitzrayim and they were working hard, they were suffering, even though on the surface it looks like just they were going through being persecuted and being tortured as slaves, but spiritually what they were going through was like a refinery. Through whatever they were going through, this was refining the world and elevating the sparks, and 202 sparks over the 288 were elevated. What is that based on? He says it's pasuk. Gam Eruv Rav Olu Itam. Let's look at the pasuk inside. It's page 36 in the booklet. It says when the Yidden went out of Mitzrayim, there were a group of Egyptians that joined them. And that group is called Eruv Rav, a great mixture, a multitude of people. So the Arizal writes, the word Rav is B'gematria 202. So even though it was people that went out, but in the Torah, based on the mystical teaching of the Torah, teaching us, when they went out, 202 sparks of the 288. First of all, it's interesting to note that means that 202 of the 288, where were they located? In Mitzrayim. And after the Yidden finished their mission being there, they went out and they extracted from Egypt the 202 sparks and were left with only 86. So 86 sparks are left, and the word 8 and the number 86 is the gematria of Hateva, of nature. Tzrichel is Gaber Bagimel Golius. After Mitzrayim, which was the first of the 4 exiles, then we had another 3. I guess he's used when he count it this way. One of them is the Golus Bavel, the Babylonian exile. And then was the exile of Purim and Hanukkah. Somehow that goes together. and the exile we're in now, which is Galus Eden with Rome. So there's an obvious question that needs to be explained, and that is, how does it make sense? Some of you maybe remember this from last year, but most of you were not here last year, so I'll say it again. How could you explain such a thing? That there were 288 sparks, 202 were elevated over a period of how many years were they in Egypt as slaves? 210 years. And even if we count altogether, it was really 400 years, but they were slaves only 210 years, even 400 years. How many Yidden were there? By the time they went out, there were 600,000. And it says that number is just those that are over 20 and under 60. Okay, including other people, maybe there were 3 million people altogether. So 3 million people in a period of 200 years or 400 years elevated 202 sparks. From then till now, it's over 3,300 years. It's not millions of people, it's billions of Jews that have lived from then till now. And we're sort of still trying to get over 86 sparks. It's totally out of proportion. So there's another question. What does it mean there's only 202 sparks? 288 sparks. If we say that everything in the world has a spark of godliness, so if there's billions of blades of grass and billions of stones and billions of grains of sand and billions of trees and billions of everything, so there's got to be billions and billions and billions and billions in this world. How can we say 288?
Does everything have like part of a spark?
Yes.
That's all I got.
Okay, that's the only thing you got. You got a hand. I'll give you the other half. So your answer is correct. In the language of Chassidus, I don't even know if I put it down here in the terms. Let me see in the workbook. In the language of Chassidus, there's the general part of the spark, and there are the details, which are like the branches that branch out and they extend from the spark. Let me see if I have it here. No, I don't. Okay. The best mashal I could think of this to explain it is something which once happened here. I think it happened about 20 years ago. And it was a Friday afternoon. It was in the summer. And all of a sudden, all the electricity went down right before Shabbos. And then we found out there was a blackout. And the blackout wasn't just here. It was here and in Canada. And I remember they said on the radio that 55 million customers lost their power. I'm not going into details what that means. When you have a refrigerator full of food for Shabbos, it's in the summer, the air conditioners aren't working. It was a mess. But by the time Shabbos was over, everything went back into place. The way it usually happens when there's a blackout, they'll announce, they'll say, just now, 5,000 people got their power back. 25,000 people just got their power back. 50,000 people just got their power back. 1 million people, eventually 55 million people in America and Canada got their power back. So try to imagine that in order to bring back the power, you need to send a team of people, that they should go to each house and fix something in the outlet, either the light or the outlets, even if it's a screw, but you need people to actually go to every single person in every single house, wherever there's electricity. How long do you think it would take for 55 million customers? By the way, a customer could be an apartment building is one customer. It would take years. And how many people would you need for that? You need a team of hundreds or even thousands of people. You'd have to visit each home. So how did it happen that in just 24 hours, 55 million people, the electricity was corrected? The answer is they didn't have to go to everybody's house. What? They have to correct the power station. The problem then, they said, was something in Niagara Falls, which affected other power stations, sub-power stations. They had to fix the power stations. And once you fix the power station, this is the place that provides power, let's say, for 5 million people. All of a sudden, all 5 million people will get their power. So in the language of Chassidus, that's called the klal. Like just like we had the word in the beginning of the Maimer, that Rosh Chodesh is a chayes klali. That's where the general life flow is found. So too the nitzutz. When we say 288 sparks, it doesn't mean there's billions of sparks. It means there are 280 groups of sparks. And these groups, they also have that part of it, which is like the general sort of source of it. And then everything else are extensions and branches that branch out from that source. Just like the power station here gives electricity for 5 million people, and that one gives electricity for 10 million people. So that's the difference. When you're elevating the sparks by reaching into the source, you don't need a team of billions of people, and you don't need 3,300 years. And therefore, those days, the neshamas in the early generations were also what we call neshama klolas, general souls. Let's remember, those souls contained in them all the souls of all the Jews of the future generations. So their souls were also on a different level. And because of that, they had access to the general part of the spark. And when you elevate that, it elevates hundreds and thousands and millions and billions of details. We, from then, that point on, we don't have that ability. We have to reach out to the details of the spark. And if you have to go to the details, you need much more people, and you need much more time to get every single detail. So there's also another thing, and that is that the general sparks that we're talking about, Hashem had them all in Mitzrayim, mainly in Mitzrayim. In fact, in those places where divine providence leads us, we were in Babel, we were in Egypt. There was a time where the Jews lived in this country or that country. Now we can say the majority of Jews live in America and in Eretz Yisrael. The reason why Hashem leads us to these places, this is the place where the sparks are found that we need to elevate it to finally bring Mashiach. So therefore, we can understand that they elevated 202 sparks, and we're elevating 86 sparks, and it took them 200 or 400 years with a small group of people, and it takes us millions and billions of people to elevate 86 sparks because we have to go throughout all the details. So the fact that Jews go from one place to the next, I once saw somewhere where they're writing, what is the definition of the Jew? And they write, it's a tribe that wanders from one place to the next. So the Jews were in every different part of the world at different times, that wherever we were, Hashem was leading us to the place where those sparks are found, that we need to elevate the world. And the class of Mashiach Gula, you learned that the Rebbe in 1992 said that now we're living in a time that all the sparks have already been elevated. So why is Mashiach here yet? That's a discussion for the Mashiach class. Let's go back into the sparks and Golos. Okay. So therefore we have these terms. Let's go for a moment just so that it's fresh in your mind, where you have in the workbook, where you have the questions, the terms. So in the workbook, that's on page, there's numbers here, I think. Yeah. It's right in the beginning, page 16, part that says Gimel. So number 3 is Olam HaTorah. That's the world of Torah that we're talking about. The world that was created first. Then I'm going backwards. Then number 2 is that in that world there was Shviras HaKelim. The vessels broke. So we need to know the word Kelim means vessels. Kelim, again, the vessels in that world were not physical and not anything remotely similar to a vessel the way we know it. It was all spiritual, and it's all spiritual light. But when one light sort of contains in it another light, it's considered a vessel. The best marshal that I could have to think of a vessel, yet it's not something physical that you can think of a container, is actually words. When we speak, those words are vessels, right? But words are also physical. Remember we said if you can hear it, see it, smell it, taste it, or touch it, it's physical. What about the words in our mind? When we think, we also think with words. In thought, the words, and people who speak more than one language know that they think in a certain language. So the words in our mind are not physical. You can't feel it, you can't touch it, you can't see it, you can't hear it. And yet they are there only as containers that allows me to think about a certain subject is the words. Without the words, whatever I'm thinking would be very confusing, would be impossible. It would be just logic without words wouldn't be possible for a person to think in an ordinary fashion, in a settled fashion. In fact, very often when you have a certain idea and you don't have the word for it, you're searching for the word. That's where thesaurus comes into the picture. Help us out. They say, live between a thesaurus and a dictionary. The dictionary, you have the word, but you don't know the meaning. Thesaurus, you have the meaning, but you don't have a word. So suddenly I have a word. Now I have a better grasp on what I'm thinking, what I'm feeling. So words are containers, even though they're both not physical. So the same thing also in this world. There are vessels. Those vessels came apart. Rabach Nitzutzah means the 288 sparks. And when it says Pevav Nitzutzas, these are the 86 sparks that we need to elevate now during Golus. So now he's going to go over to speaking about what is our Avodah of elevating the sparks. What does that mean practically? Everybody still holding on? Yeah? Okay. We have the second line from the bottom, the middle of the line. And the main, sort of the real main thrust of elevating the sparks is actually now. The Golus, and this last final Golus, this Golus is so much more difficult than the two Golusin that preceded us. So what is the Avodah? Now we said that 86 is the Gematria Teva. In a Teva, the word Teva, Hare Pirusha Tzalila Ushkia. So we know Teva means nature, but there's another meaning to the word Teva, and that is sunk in. There's a pasuk in davening, it's really from the Chumash, where it talks about crossing the sea in Egypt, and it has the word Tubu b'Yamsuf, that the Egyptians were drowned, that they were sunk into the water. So Teva means something that's sunk in water. The word ring in Hebrew is tabas, the same letters as Teva. What's the connection? The Indian at Teva, because what is nature? Masha emes eine nira. Nature is something which conceals the truth, and you don't see what's really true. Vasheker nira lemes. What's false appears to be what's true. Like something which is sunk into the water. That the water covers it from, when something is in the water, it's covered completely. I guess he means, let's say you cover something with a blanket. Even though you're covering it, but you can see there's something there underneath. When there's something sunk in the water, not only you don't see it, you don't even recognize that there's something being hidden, because the water covers it in a different way. So therefore, Teva is something which covers up on the emes that Hashem is making this happen, and it covers it. When it says the words that it covers it from all sides, means it's totally not obvious from any angle that really Hashem is doing this, unless you meditate and you really think about it. Whatever it is that sunk in the water hasn't changed. Let's say there's a diamond there. The diamond was a diamond outside of the water. The diamond is the same diamond now that it's in the water. The change is only for me. Before it was revealed, I could see it. And now, Nelam, the Nignaz, Teichamayim, and it is hidden and concealed in the water that covers up on it. Kitabas haseviv bashva mekolsa, just like a ring, just like a circle something from all sides the same. One of the things about a circle is that the center of the circle is equal distance to every part of the circle. It means to say that water covers up from all angles and all sides, that no matter which way you look at it, you don't see anything godly, you just see nature. You see something which looks like there's a different reason why it's happening. The person who's looking doesn't even know that there's something there in the water. From time to time, they announce that they just found a boat that sunk many years ago, and then there's a treasure on the boat. It was there all the time. But anybody who was in the area, even people who are passing with boats or swimming there, no one knew that it exists because it was so deep. That's what the water does, it hides it completely. But not only that when you look, you don't see the emes. You see something which is false, and you think that it's emes. Somebody once wrote an article that he was on his way to give a class, and he got into a taxi. And in the back seat where he was sitting, there was a steering wheel. So he asked the driver, "Why do you have a steering wheel in the back seat?" So he starts laughing. He says, "I have a 3-year-old kid. Every time he gets in the car, it drives me crazy that he wants to sit and turn the wheel. So I got him a steering wheel in the back. He sits in his seat, turns the wheel, and he thinks that he's driving the car." So he said, "Wow, I had perfect material for my class now. Perfect muscle. We think we're driving the car. We think that this guy was elected because these people and those people, the progressive people, they voted for him. He was elected because Hashem decided that he has to be there. And Hashem will make things turn out the way they're supposed to be. If I make money in my parnasa, it's not because, wow, I'm so smart. I really understood when to invest. I knew when to sell. I really understood not to do business with this person because he doesn't know good. It's all me and my business mind, and I'm great." That's all sheker. The reason why you gained what you gained or you lost what you lost, it's all because Hashem made it happen that way. So there's two things. Number one, I don't see the emes. And number two, that which is false appears and is perceived as if this is really what's going on. When children are watching a puppet show, they think that these puppets are real and they're really talking. You remember? That's how Hashem created the world. He created a system, that this system conceals Hashem, and it looks as if the system called nature is the reason why things are happening. And that's the connection between 86 and Hateva, because this is what we need to elevate now, these 86 sparks, which means we need to reveal godliness in the physical world, which is so hidden by nature. In that way, this Golus is actually worse than the previous Golus. Why? The Uz, in those Golusin earlier, there was a lot of unfortunate things going on, concealments. There was Gzeirus Rois, there was decrees. As we know, the Jews were being persecuted. They were expelled from one country to another country. Where they lived, they had to live in a ghetto. They had a lot of decrees which made their life miserable. They were more receptive to see the emes, that Hashem is running the world and everything is from Hashem. And yes, they were suffering and it made it difficult, but they still saw the emes. The worldly things that were going on and the worldly things they were involved with didn't sort of bring them down to the point that they lost touch with spirituality. But in this Golus, the Vikras and Mashiach, where we're coming close to the footsteps of Mashiach, and the later in Golus we are, the more darkness, the thicker the darkness is, the Kol HaKoshi VaKovid Rachmana Litzlan is Bagboras HaTeva. The biggest difficulty, the greatest difficulty is that nature is sort of overpowering and dominating. Sheker nira le'emes. That what sheker appears to be that this is true, that that as if all these false things, this is really the source of life, and this is really the source of happiness, and this is really what counts, and everything else is unimportant. The Seviv alakol ki'igul, and this encompasses everything like a circle or like a ring. A Seviv makiv cotton v'gadol, that circles everything, and to an extent that wherever we look, we just see that things have the natural reason why they're happening, and we attribute everything to that. And Rahman al-Islam, very little attention is given to godliness, which is actually the source and the primary reason for why everything is happening. So our avodah is to reveal godliness, that the whole world is really just a facade, and the Eibishter is the one that's really responsible why things are happening. However, in the next chapter, that's where he begins explaining what is the difference between this, what he just said, and elevating the spark, especially in the Nisayan. To be continued. Tzlocha Rabba, everybody, and tzlocha the Kedei. Yeah.
Question. So if all the sponsor why does this stay on it now? Yeah. Like now.
It's a good question. Let me think about it.
Thank you. Everything was so. I don't know. I just said that I just don't forget that. I didn't see, yeah, they don't like the Muslim world. So yeah. Yeah. Huh? For all the radicals, yeah.
Morning, everyone. Gonna take attendance.
Right.